The compilation you're about to hear is a series of life-threatening, horrifying, and in-your-face situations in which the author is at risk. This could easily happen, and they are so believable and realistic. With that out of the way, let's begin. Story number 1. Harassed or chased down by a car while walking with my mom. Okay, so for context for this story, I live in a pretty rural area. We live in the outskirts of our town, which already is small compared to the populations of the other towns in California. We are about 15 minutes from the small town and 40 minutes from the main city. We live down a dirt road with some neighbors. Our house has no other fences attached to ours, and on two sides of the house is only fields and dirt roads. One side having a single house in the field. The other two sides have a couple neighbors down other roads, and nobody really interacts out here, except my dad talking to two of them sometimes. I was probably 12 when this happened. I had low self-esteem and I wanted to start exercising more. I had been enrolled in a charter school due to bullying, and yes, that played into my self-esteem, but let's get on with the story. So I didn't really have many ways of exercise besides a treadmill that we owned. I wanted to start getting fresh air too, so my mom thought I was stubborn about it half the time. But we began walking and usually would go in the mid to late afternoon when it would start cooling down outside, but it was still light. In case it got dark, we took our flashlight too. Being out here, it was notorious for stray dogs to sometimes make their way out here. And we would carry pepper spray and a mini bat just in case one got vicious. However, a dog will play into this story. One day, me and my mom decided to go on a walk in the later afternoon. So me and my mom took off and started walking down the road. When you walk about a quarter of a mile down the road, you start to come towards a little cross section. There is a road going left to the highway, a road going right to the neighbor's house, or the road goes straight down to a utility road. Me and my mom discussed walking down the utility road to get a good walk in, since it went on for a while. When we started getting to the crossroad, this dog came out of literally nowhere. We were looking at it, and it was in the center of the roads, staring at us. Me and my mom looked at it, and my mom said that she got this feeling in her stomach that we needed to turn around and walk home. So she grabbed my arm and started leading me back home, and then let go so that we could walk. We were in the midst of walking when she looks ahead and stops to stare at something. I ask what she's looking at, and she points. A white car pulled up to our fence and quickly backed up and shut down the road on the side of our house. Mind you, nobody ever goes this road except one old man that we know. Anyone else who does usually is scoping out my dad's tools to steal. My mom said she felt a bit uneasy because of it and pulled me to the edge of the dirt road, almost into the field. The car had driven to the highway and left, or so we thought. We continued walking back to our house when this car comes back and drives down the road we were walking alongside. I caught a glimpse, and it was this smaller white car with black tinted windows that you couldn't see through. My mom instantly got a feeling of impending doom and pulled me into the field. Not too far, but far enough. We kept walking through the field towards our house. Getting closer now, but this car comes back down the road. My mom stops me in my tracks to see what the car is doing, and it drives back to our house and starts driving around it super fast. For context, we have a random road and area that goes around our yard on our property. My mom waits until the car drives back the side road, and she tells me that we need to start running. So that's what we did. We started running through the field, getting to one of the little sections near my yard. The car comes back and drives down the road, trying to cut us off. Me and my mom are panicking at this point and have no idea who this is and why they are acting out like this. The car circles around again. My mom drags me further to the right of where we were, I think, and told me that we are going to run down into the ditch. We get down in the ditch and the car comes back around and pulls to the edge of the ditch where we were. The front of the car was facing us, and all I could think about was that if it drove down, it would hit me and my mom and probably kill us. My mom quickly put her arm in front of me and stood dead still, while I was literally horrified and dropped our flashlight and I think my water bottle. The car was getting ready to drive down where we were, and then suddenly they backed up and drove around the yard, going back down the side road to the highway. Me and my mom felt like our souls left, and she tells me to run, don't look back, and get to the front gate. I run up the ditch, feeling my heart pounding. I run around the yard and towards the front gate. Flinging, I opened and I started running towards the front door. I did not hear my mom behind me. I was running to the door to open it right when I looked over and saw the car coming back down the side road. I ran into the house, trying to catch my breath. I saw the car drive down the road and I didn't see my mom, so I was panicking. I ran towards the sliding glass door and suddenly my mom comes running towards it and flings it open, running in and locking it. She tells me to go lock the front door while I try to catch my breath and tell her I was scared because I had no idea where she was. She went to chug some water from the fridge and told me that when I was running, she was trying to shut the front gate when she noticed the car coming back down the road. She said she knew she wouldn't have time to follow me to the door, so she ran behind my sister's car to stay out of view of the car. And when it drove back down the road, she took the opportunity to run the back door since it was closer to my sister's car. It's crazy to think that if we hadn't seen that dog standing there in the road and decided to turn back, that we may have been run down. Fortunately, we haven't seen the car again, and I think it may have just been some crazy person or druggie who just so happened to come down our road that day.
Then what happened? Did they drive off? Did you ever see them again?
They drove off and I never saw them again. I still get freaked out when I see white cars if I'm walking outside my yard.
Oh my. Do you have cameras?
I do not. Unfortunately, anything like that is against our lease, unless we have them sign off on it and give them access. However, we ended up roping off the road around our yard and used cones to hide metal posts inside, along with putting up trespass signs. So if any cars try to drive through now, they are going to take a lot of damage.
What a super creepy experience. This is just horrifying. Thank you for sharing. How was your mom after it?
She's okay. She grew up in towns like ours where there weren't many people, and she actually has a lot of crazy experiences. Number 2. My first date in Korea beat my face on the street. First and foremost, I'd like to clarify and start off by saying that I'm writing these lines in the year 2019, in the month of September. I had been sent to Korea from my university a few years ago. They told me for my major I had to go somewhere in Asia, and my friend had really talked up Korea for me. I knew nothing about it, but I decided, what the hell, and I embarked on a semester-long trip. I had only had one serious boyfriend in my life, who I had broken up with a few months prior. I also don't enjoy one-night stands, and wasn't digging the dudes at the clubs in Seoul. But I still wanted to have some sort of romantic experience, I suppose. So my friend recommended I use this dating app to meet English-speaking Koreans. That way I could meet someone and experience the actual dating culture. I thought, I'm young, so why not? I was just so eager to have new experiences. Maybe it sounds dumb to try dating in a foreign country, but it worked out for me eventually. Just not the first date. I met him on a dating app after being in Seoul for about 3 weeks. Let's call him Tim. I still didn't know the culture or city very well, and I was a bit naive about everything. He eagerly wanted to meet for a date after talking to me, and he seemed nice. I should have asked more questions, and I should have noticed that he was not giving me many details about himself. Tim was a guy a bit older than me, but claimed he was a college student. I assumed he had done his military time, all men in Korea have to, and returned to school. We talked for a bit and decided to meet for a tea date near the school I went to. He wanted to come to my dorm originally to pick me up, but I live in an all-women's dorm, and I didn't want him to know exactly where I lived, since we were still strangers. So, instead, I insisted we met at the main town center near the subway. He really didn't like this idea, which looking back was a red flag, but eventually I insisted. The night of the date, I waited for an hour for this guy. He was very late. Tim weirdly claimed he just wanted to make me wait. I thought he was kidding and messaged him a laughing emoji, assuming that he was just lost. When he finally arrived, he was much smaller than I thought, but a man's height has never been something I care about much. He was also quite thin. Maybe I let my guard down because I didn't see him as physically threatening to me, which was a mistake in the end. Right off the bat, he was way too touchy with me, and breathed creepy and heavy. I was so off-put with his demeanor. I'm usually very tolerant with different personality types, but this was very odd to me. I had been told that Korean men would be polite and not so touchy on the first date. He was also dressed oddly like in business attire for a date, but I thought that maybe it's just a Korean thing. Again, I was dumb and I knew jack shit about the culture. Then the first thing he said to me was, "You're not as white as I thought you were." I thought this was a translation error, but his English was near perfect. So I asked for clarification, and he said what he meant. "I thought you would be more white. Your skin is darker than I thought, and your eyes aren't as green. Are you pure European?" Now I was officially weirded out. First of all, I'm pretty much as white as you can get. I'm Irish and Scandinavian, so white as hell, basically. So the fact that he thought I could have possibly been any whiter was funny. And why did he care in the first place anyway? Why does my skin color matter to this guy? And why is he bringing it up? He said about 3 times on the date how he wished I had greener eyes. And every time I would just reply, "Well, Maybe my online photos make me look brighter? And brushed it off as him being nervous and trying to start a conversation. Isn't it funny the dumb excuses you make for people when you're panicked? When we arrive at the tea place, I tried to order a basic raspberry tea. And he stopped me and told me that I had to have this special tea. I thought it was weird. He wanted to choose my tea for me, but in my head I brushed it off once again. He really insisted I drink only this tea type, and I just agreed. These small details become weirder later. After tea, he asked if we could look around my school. It was dark, but the school was very well lit, so I agreed. And the whole time we walked around, he would randomly stop and grab me for long hugs. At first, I let it happen. But then I stopped him, and he just kept trying. He kept grabbing me and breathing hard into my neck. It was so awkward. He also would not tell me any personal details about himself. I asked so many questions, desperately trying to distract from all the awkward grabbing, and to try and get to know him. But he would never tell me anything. He even said at one point, "I'm a mysterious man," like a movie line. He also said something like, "You look so much like my favorite movie character." And I asked who, but he said that I would have to figure it out on my own. Finally, he said, "I want to go to a dark area." And in my head I screamed, "Hell no!" At this point, I wanted the date to be over fast. He somehow knew there was a wooded area behind my campus, and he said that we should go there. I said no, and that I wanted to stay near the main campus and town. But he kept pushing. Finally, he grabbed my arm and started dragging me there. He said, "I can't let anyone see," and I started to panic. I finally ripped my arm away and just demanded we leave and go back to the main road immediately. Looking back, I don't know why I didn't ask for help or get angry. Maybe I was scared. But I just began to book it back to the main road, and he followed. We ended up in front of a hospital near the center of town, and I told him it was time for him to go. I made some excuse and he was pleading with me to stay. I told him we could meet the next day, and I lied, and I would message him. I just wanted to get away at this point. I was pretending it was all okay just so that he would leave. Suddenly, I think he's leaning in to kiss me, and I immediately think, "Oh God, no!" But it was so much worse. Instead, I felt pain in my face. It takes me a second to realize that he was biting my face. It was like a dog. I had never felt the sensation before. He leaned his head sideways and bit me on my nose and cheek, as hard as he could. I screamed and pushed him away from me. His face looked so freaky, and I barely had any time to react in words. Instead, I ran up the sidewalk until I saw a convenience store on the right. I ran to the back of the store and bent down to start crying. The man who owned the store started to yell at me, but I couldn't explain my situation. I just begged him in English to let me stay. I ended up having to buy a popsicle to stick around. God, I wish I had learned some Korean by then. I guess Tim didn't follow me. I peered outside the store and I didn't see him. I texted a friend and I waited for them to get me to take me back to my dorm. On the way, I messaged Tim and basically told him to stay away from me. I told him he was a creep, that he shouldn't bite women, and something along the lines of me calling the police, and then I blocked him. I was so scared to walk around my school area after that. I was so afraid that he would find me somehow. I'm so thankful I never let him pick me up at my dorm. I called my mom to tell her what happened when suddenly she said, "Wait, what did he ask you?" She then put some details together and realized that all these weird things had to do with the 50 Shades of Grey books. At first, I thought she was just being silly and overthinking a bad date. I thought she was joking, but oh God, she was right. She had recently seen the movie or read the book or of something and knew the details. She had recently seen the movie or read the book or something and knew the details. The eye color and the way that he dressed, and the tea he made me drink and the random lines he said. It all matches the books and movies for his dirty little fantasy. My mom thinks he picked me because I look like the girl in that movie to him. He explains why he was so fixated on my appearance and his whole thing with the biting and trying to dominate me. Even if it wasn't his intention, I later learned that there are some few creeps who seek out foreign girls to dominate and have sex with as like a prize. They call it riding the white horse or something along these lines. On a happier note, this bad experience didn't stop me. I eventually met someone else in Korea and we ended up falling in love. We even did the whole long distance thing. And now I'm living in Korea, studying and working, hoping to marry soon. I guess I didn't let bad creepy guys stop my life. As for team, let's not meet. It's been years, but I will kick your ass if I see you. And I won't have to bite.
First of all, what the fuck? Second of all, congrats on finding love.
Oh, thank you. My friend at the dorm pushed me to not give up, so I wouldn't forever have just this one bad experience with Korean dudes. I eventually met someone else and we traveled Korea together and had many dates. When it was time for me to go, we both decided to try long distance even though it sounded insane. It's been a few years now and I couldn't be happier. I've become quite good at Korean and I'm working and living with him in Korea now. We plan to go to the US in the upcoming years, but until then, I've learned to love Korea and function here quite well. I will say, for a Korean man, my fiancé is very open-minded and not as traditional as many Korean guys I've met.
I had a guy desperately trying to get me to go to karaoke with him. When I finally relented, he tried forcing himself all over me. It was gross, but I have to say at least he didn't chomp on my face.
The karaoke or DVD bang are both traps. A lot. I had a friend who went to the DVD bang with a date and suddenly he was all over her. I'm glad my date just wanted tea, although maybe a dark karaoke was his next mission. And for the people wondering, bang in Korean means room. Bang. So it's a place people go to watch DVDs, like a tiny little private theater. But no one goes there to really do that, since Korean teens and young adults can't take their dates home to their family. They often hook up there or at love hotels.
Oh my, that was a terrifying roller coaster ride of a read. I'm so sorry you had to actually endure it. I kept thinking as I was reading, oh no, please get out of there. OP, don't bring the specialty. Don't go to the dark place. And the face biting. Good lord, this guy sounds so creepy and dangerous. I'm glad you never saw him again.
Um, I'm I'm glad he never tried to find me. Even to this day, years later, living in Korea, I worry I'll somehow run into him. Although now I'm prepared to kick some ass.
That guy was freaking disgusting. I read those 50 Shades of Grey books and saw the movie. I mean, the BDSM relationship portrayed in the book is very unhealthy in itself, and your Korean creeper dude was bringing his idea of a BDSM relationship to a whole other level of unhealthy. There was zero consent on your part. Also, there is no part in the book where anyone bites the other's nose and cheek. Just a weak bite on the lip, maybe. This guy seems like he had no experience with actual women. He just went with what was purely in his head and desperately tried making it reality. I'm relieved, Obi, that he didn't do anything further. I'm sorry this happened to you, and I'm glad you found love.
You're spot on. You're spot on. In fact, I'd say I agree with someone who asked this. How did you make it through the books and stay sane? The real masochism is reading them. And more hilarious is this other reply that goes, her inner goddess forced her to.
Dude, had him trying to bust on one too many times. In all seriousness though, that's pretty terrifying and just so what? Congrats on being strong enough to get back out there and find someone better.
Oh my, I love Train to Busan. And yes, maybe he saw it too much.
On the behalf of Korea man, I apologize for this creep's behavior and I'm glad this one experience didn't make you think we are all like that, which unfortunately tends to happen to any bad experience with a group. Although I am Korean American, I've heard a lot about guys in Asia fetishizing white women because this stereotype of them being easy, though I've never heard of someone basing their ideal date on 50 Shades. Glad to hear about your love. Wish you both the best.
Oh, your comment is highly appreciated.
I have a Korean friend and he's the perfect gentleman. But he said that Korean schools are really wild because the teacher don't care about bullying, so some kids beats over really badly. He ended up going to my school because of bullying. Were you bleeding when he bit you? I'm quite shocked that the convenience store man didn't at least try to help.
Oh, no, he didn't draw any blood, thank God. And yeah, my fiancé tells me about his days in school. How the boys would just beat each other up in schoolyard out of pure boredom. I taught English for a bit to kids and they told me about some of the crazy bullying in schools. I heard that kids even committed suicide over not having fancy clothes, especially in North Face. It's so sad. Korea has some of the highest suicide rates in the world, and it's often kids. There are many things I love about the Korean culture, and things I think they do better than the US, my home. But their education system, I believe, is their biggest downfall and injustice to their kids. They stay in school until late at night and fight just to get into a college. Poor kids. My fiancé and I agree we wouldn't raise our children in his home, Korea, just because of the school system mostly. Korea is an incredibly safe and fun country for the most part. Obviously, my experience with creepy biter is a rare one. And it's sad that the school system is such a disaster.
Yes. In Asia, a lot of the time the adults don't care about bullying and don't try to teach love and kindness so much as success. For instance, in China, some delusional parents say that their kids have a right to cheat because everyone is doing it. The kids probably just do it because if they aren't the best, they get beaten. I am Asian and I love our cultures, but we need to start having a life without abuse. The amount of school and extracurriculars is getting out of hand. Kids aren't let Kids aren't allowed to be kids, so they don't develop interpersonal social skills and just fight or become depressed and isolated. We don't need socialization classes. We need recess.
Sounds like this dude was just fucked up regardless of what culture he came from. You are just an object, not a person to him. The fact that he couldn't figure out that 50 Shades is fiction and not an actual guide on how to treat women just shows what a creep fucking idiot he was. Thank goodness you got the hell away from him and actually met someone way more decent. That's great that you are engaged.
I never did like 50 Shades. The relationship portrayed is super abusive and manipulative. It's horrifying to think there are people out there using the book as some type of guide. Though it definitely doesn't help that the author herself has purposely created that image of her book just to make more money off of it. How irresponsible. I just really dislike E.L. James.
I am totally positively overwhelmed with the replies. Thank you so much.